If you're listening to this message, the powers that be couldn't hold us down. It's episode 77 or something of This Week in Cleantech, our weekly roundup of the biggest stories you need to know about in climate and clean energy. We do it in 15 minutes or less. Today is Friday, May 9th, 2025, and Mike Casey, my lawn is out of control. Out here in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey, in the last week, it has turned from a lawn into something out of Jumanji. Like, I half expect Robin Williams and the kids to come running through on some sort of adventure that a board game tasked them with. I need to get out there on the mower, so we got 14 minutes to knock the rest of the show out. Alex Kaufman, big fan of this guy, formerly of HuffPost, just published his first piece in The Atlantic. He writes for us on Factor This sometimes. He is on the horn, joining us on the show shortly. If you don't know me by now, I am Paul Gerke, Factor This content director, joined by my foil and the handsomer of the two of us, Mike Casey, Cleantech commentator extraordinaire from Tigercomm. Mike, happy Friday to you.
And Paul Gerke, I thought I was the spin doctor. You saying you saying I'm better looking than you is really, that's a high compliment. All right, first off, big news. As people probably saw on LinkedIn, John Engel has left the building. I want to thank my friend for starting this show and doing such a great job putting up with us and investing his time. So the guy was just awesome, and I want to say thank you, John. I hope now you'll actually start to watch this show. Just saying.
Hey, by the way, when you say left the building, not like Elvis left the building, right? Like he's still around.
He's on planet Earth. He's just left the Clarion building. Okay, second, did you see this, Paul Gerke? Mark Zuckerberg wants us all to have AI friends. Isn't that cool? I think that he's projecting. I think he lacks friends, and he wants AI friends. And here's the third thing. So, hey, Cleantechers, we have a new feature on This Week in Cleantech. Every week, we're going to have one 30-second video submission from a listener who wants to share with us what he or she thinks is a really big issue or big story happening in the space. So submit those. We've got guidance here, and we'll post the email address that you send this to, but 30 seconds, your name, your title, your company, what you think the really big story in clean tech is and why you think that. Keep it at 30 seconds. Tape from a quiet place, running your phone, and send it off to us, and we'll take a look and we'll put one up. So I want to thank Tor Valenza, who's a listener shout out because he suggested this very cool feature. Thank you, Tor. We really appreciate it. All right, Paul Gerke.
I can't wait to get some of those in. I want to know what you guys are thinking about some of the big stories in the space. And we do want to shout out the other listeners, folks like Ethan Loomis, a videographer in the clean tech space. He slid into my DMs this week, Mike Casey. Says he's a long time This Week in Clean Tech guy. And if anyone listening is looking for a photographer trying to connect on a solar or wind groundbreaking or ribbon cutting, you can give Ethan a shout. He'd love to work and to support you in this space. And if you want to be part of the show, you can nominate stories that caught your eye each week. If you're not up for the whole 30-second thing, paul.gerke@clarionevents.com. Mike, we are on borrowed time. Story number one. Let's get into it.
I'm moving. Marin Somerset Webb from Bloomberg, titled, "Why Going Nuclear is the Only Good Choice." Paul, I'm going to let you go first because I'm going into the batter's cage and warming up on this one.
He came into the show, guys, amped. I mean, ready to go. Like right. He is at jiu-jitsu, ready to fight right now. So I'm going to be quick. I got like 2 sentences, and I'm going to throw you a softball, Mike. The story makes the case that nuclear, a case for nuclear via that giant power outage we were talking about last week in Europe, the Iberian power shortage. The cause for the blackout in Spain and Portugal still not known. There's been a lot of debate over the role of renewables in it. Mike, what do you think about this piece?
I think that Marin, hey Marin, look, this is me, Mike. I know you probably won't ever watch this, but can I just talk to you? When you don't know, you shouldn't say with certainty, because in the same day you were declaring that we had too much solar in the Iberian Peninsula driving this blackout, your own news outlet reported that the case was different. It was an underinvestment in the grid to handle solar. So do me a favor, right? Don't be sometimes wrong, rarely in doubt. Instead, cut the net zero absolutist crap. In absolute terms, there's no such thing as too much solar. We have too little grid resiliency because, in case you haven't noticed, we don't have planet B. But unless you and Musk have found it, you're going to go jet off there. Just let us who need to do the clean energy transition get about it, and you can sit it out or find something else to write about. Paul, story number 2.
Here, and I think that you might have found a client for Zuckerberg's AI friends, Elon. Elon could probably use a few online friends.
Totally.
Story number 2, from previous guests Maxine Joslow and Shannon Osaka from the Washington Post. We're getting some names on this show, brother. Story called Republicans Say EVs Don't Pay Their Fair Share. Here's the math.
We are star-drenched here. Star-drenched. I mean, you and I aren't stars, but just... So, continuing with our theme of certainty exceeding reality, some of our esteemed lawmakers at the federal level want to propose a $250 annual fee for EV drivers who don't pay the gas tax for highway trust funding, which covers the cost of road repairs nationwide. Critics argue this fee is high compared to what gas vehicle owners pay. Average gas drivers pay $73 per year in federal gas tax. EV fee is triple that. Do you get that, Paul?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So proposal also includes a $100 annual fee for hybrid vehicles. I believe, to use a Fox News term, this is picking winners or losers, or more or less charitably speaking, this is losers trying to save the losers with our tax money. Paul Gerke.
Yeah, just sort of arbitrary numbers there, Mike. The math doesn't really add up. If passed, which I don't expect this to be, but we'll see, the fees could generate over $38 billion in revenue over the next decade. At least 39 states already charge some sort of EV registration fee. The amount varies widely. Republicans have already, if you haven't been following this, are eager to eliminate the $7,500 federal EV tax credit, which will hurt all EV companies in the United States and adoption as a whole. But as we've discussed previously on the show from the story of another esteemed author, probably hurts Tesla the least, which makes it another conflict of interest amongst the millions that we're keeping track of. The Republicans also want to stop the National Charging Infrastructure Program. They complain about not having any place to charge these EVs, but they also don't want to build them. And they also want to repeal the pollution rules that encourage EV production and take us back 10, 20, 30 years. EV makers should pay their fair share. I don't think anybody's debating that, Mike, but I don't think the rate should be anywhere more than what gas vehicle owners are. If anything, it should be less, because a lot of EVs are lighter weight than a lot of the gas vehicles on the road and do less damage to the roads. But anyway, I'm not an expert on that, just my thoughts. Mike, story 3.
Samini Sengupta from the New York Times. India sees a future making solar panels for itself and maybe the world.
Yeah, there are some American manufacturers, like my friends at Helion, who are ahead of this curve. You may remember they made a deal with India's Premier Energies last year, complicated by the tariff situation right now, but they're working the kinks out on that, trying to add a line to their cell production in India and then bring the same sort of technology over in Minnesota. India is trying to break that stranglehold of solar tech that China seems to have right now, scaling up domestic manufacturing of everything from panels to EV batteries to wind equipment. The Indian government is offering subsidies and some protectionist policies restricting imports for renewable projects. India, as you may know, is still pretty dependent on coal, but it has nearly doubled its wind and solar capacity in 5 years, targeting around 500 gigawatts of non-fossil energy by 2030. But like other countries, China is the one supplying a lot of the components. They are the powerhouse in this space. It's just cheaper to get them. That is, unless you have a 145% tariff, Mike.
All right, I'm sorry for the scatological reference, but finally, we get to cover a story here that's not directly about American politicians putting their foot in economic poop piles. India's export ambitions got a boost under Biden. The U.S. financed key solar projects in India and offered tax breaks to panel makers, causing solar panel modules exports to increase 23 times from 2022 to 24. Now tariffs cause uncertainty over Indian exports. Domestic policy can help India replace China in global clean tech supply chains, but it also depends what other countries do. If other countries continue to buy cheap exports from China, China will continue to dominate. Paul, our fourth story.
Story number 4 by Perry Cleveland Peck from the Wall Street Journal, titled United Bets on Photosynthesis and Limestone to Fuel Net Zero Flight Path. Net Zero Flight stuff. This is good, Mike. Talk to me about it.
This is in the cool new tech category.
Yeah.
This time from the airline that I fly a lot, United Airlines.
Same
and no, I am not getting a frequent flyer mile bonus by saying this.
Same piece.
United has joined with Heirloom, a direct air capture startup, and 12, a startup working to mimic photosynthesis to produce sustainable aviation fuel that can cut life cycle pollution by 90%. We hope this is more serious than ExxonMobil's algae scam. United can purchase up to 500,000 tons of carbon dioxide via Heirloom, equivalent to offsetting pollution from a Boeing flying 33 million. That's with an M, miles. United also invested in Jet Zero, a startup developing blended wing aircraft that could cut fuel use by up to 50% per passenger mile compared with traditional planes. Paul Gerke, what'd you think?
In my opinion, Mike, this is last mile stuff, right? Like this is the big stuff we really need to figure out at the end of this sort of carbon reduction goal that we're headed toward. This is part of United's larger goal to hit net zero by 2050. This stuff is hard to do.
Yes.
They're only sourcing a few tenths of a percentage point of its fuel for in 2024 from such sources. Scaling this industry is going to be difficult, but it is going to be crucial to larger decarbonization goals. SAF production remains 3 to 4 times more expensive than traditional jet fuel, by the way, Mike. We got to get there somehow, and hopefully this is the right way.
All right, coming back to join us is returning Cleantech, This Week in Cleantech guest, Alexander Kaufman, who, I just want to let it know, is remarkably fresh for having done a mad dash through New York subway system to get here to tape this. Alexander, thank you for coming. You're a trooper for braving the subways to get to your microphone. And we want to thank you. Welcome back.
If you think I'm a trooper now, you should have seen me in hard-bottomed loafers, just clopping along the sidewalk to get here. But very happy to be back. Thank you, Thank you for having me.
So this is a cool story. If people haven't read it, which we definitely want them to do, what is the big takeaway?
So the big takeaway is that the administration early on, when they announced their different energy policies, put a big priority on continuing the priority that the Biden administration had, which was to increase domestic production of minerals that we need for batteries and a whole host of other clean manufacturing. But they're eliminating many of the key demand side pulls for those minerals on the manufacturing side. So while they are looking to fast track a bunch of mines and processing facilities, they are at the same time eliminating the Inflation Reduction Act's 30D tax credit for electric vehicles. That was by far the biggest demand pull for domestic minerals in the first place. They are gutting the Department of Energy's Loan Programs Office, which, is a $400 billion lending institution that could be very well used to help to finance some of these riskier endeavors. And they are starting trade wars. A lot of the allies who, experts who track this stuff said were absolutely key for collaboration for the United States to establish some kind of non-Chinese supply chain for these minerals in a reasonable amount of time. Even if you maximize the amount of rare earths and lithium and graphite that you are producing here in the United States, that's never going to be enough to compete with China directly. So it requires having a good relationship with Australia and Canada and Chile and a lot of these other places. And a lot of those places are pretty agitated by the kinds of tariffs that have been placed on them in the last few weeks.
And Alex, those tariffs are really putting a damper on the bottom line of some American businesses. I just wrote a story yesterday about Fluence, the AES and Siemens company, having to scale back its projections and pressing pause on a lot of its U.S. projects, and then stopping taking new contracts. They said, listen, we got to get this tariff stuff figured out. I read that this could more than double or triple costs of some of their projects. And this is a company, we talk about this often on the show. These are the companies trying to create American jobs that are investing in infrastructure, that are trying to do exactly the things that the Trump administration is beating its chest about, and they're the ones wearing it. Alex, this seems like a compounding effect that just seems it's a piling on sort of thing.
That's exactly right. And while the tariffs are agitating some of these potential trading partners, they are also just having the very straightforward and predictable effect of raising the cost of importing the equipment required to actually set up these facilities in the first place. So this is definitely a headwind that I think a lot of these projects are facing. And I think, as you correctly identify, it's not at all limited to minerals processing or mining or anything like that. I have a story that should be coming out in the next hour or so on Canary Media that is actually looking at what is happening with the gutting of another Department of Energy program, the Industrial Demonstrations Program at the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations. And in this case, you had expertly project managed investments in companies that you would think would have some sway over the Trump administration, like ExxonMobil, and are dealing with things like chemical refining and hydrogen production and uses of CO2, things that by and large you'd have a really hard time slotting into some kind of culture war interpretation of a certain technology. And yet the effect and the influence of Doge, Elon Musk's department, is such that they are looking for cuts even in these places that would seem to support the president's agenda. Notably, one of those projects is actually in Vice President Vance's hometown and is for modernizing blast furnaces at a Cleveland Cliffs steel factory. So not even that is immune to this type of slashing and burning.
As the one commentator on this show, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I'm hearing from you journalists that you're actually pointing out policy contradiction. I've never seen it before.
Wild, right?
It's amazing. So, Paul Gerke, I know you want to go mow your lawn. Do you mind if I ask our guest one more question?
No, hey, man, I'm in overtime, and as you might know, I'm a big hockey guy, and in hockey, in the playoffs, they play OT until sudden death. So until Brian Mendez pulls the plug on this, I'm in. Once we're in OT, brother, I'm yours, and you're mine.
You were doing a lot of complaining about your lawn earlier, but fine. All right, Mr. Kaufman.
I can almost see it through the window now.
Okay, good. Mr. Kaufman, my question for you is wither lithium. I have heard two different schools of thought. One is lithium supply chains are fine, not in a supply problem. I've heard the opposite. Did your reporting for this story land you in one camp or another?
Well, I think it sort of depends on which aspect of the supply chain you're talking about and what type of company is in that position. So, we have an abundance of lithium on the market presently because there was a ramp up of production for an EV production level that was missed. That makes it really difficult then for there to be domestic investment in new production because the price is too low to make that secure. And again, when you're eliminating some of these federal programs that are meant to support these projects, that makes that even less appetizing to investors. So in places like North Carolina, for example, where we were expecting to see a big lithium boom over the last few years, and where, in fact, fun fact, most of the world's commercial lithium was produced from the 1940s through, I think, almost as late as the 1980s, that, you're seeing a real stalling out of a lot of projects there because the price just isn't where it needs to be, and the federal support is no longer as certain as it was before January. So that is certainly an issue, but is there sufficient supply of lithium on the market today to meet the needs that we have? There is. That's the sort of problem, is that there's enough supply that the prices are too low to incentivize further production, and perhaps then jeopardizes some of that medium to long term supply that we need to line up if projections from the International Energy Agency and others are correct about where electric vehicles are going to go.
Well, Mr. Gerke, if you don't mind, we'll go to our Cleantecher of the week.
Yeah, we're deep in overtime. I like lying to the listeners. When I tell them it's 15 minutes, I know it's not going to be 15 minutes, and I say it anyways because it's right there in the script. I'm like Ron Burgundy in that way. Cleantecher of the week, Meredith Connolly. She shared a story with us, Mike, about her first road trip in an electric vehicle, and for some of us that was hellish. My first cross-country did not go super well, but that's kind of my own fault. I planned like a typical male. Charging her car on that trip, by the way, only cost her like $22. you can't even get a large pizza with a couple toppings for that out where Alex and I are in New York or New Jersey. The station in front of a Target, though, is where she ended up charging, and then she spent a lot more in the store than she did on the charger. I think the point that she's trying to make, Mike, is that this is a good business decision to park EV chargers out in front of your establishment, especially if you're one of those retail joints that hooks us all in without a mission, and then we leave with a whole cart full of crap.
All right. Well, I want to say thanks to Brian Mendez, our wonderful producer, and to Alex Peterson and Claire Quirin for helping gather these stories. And finally, I want to say College of Worcester women's lacrosse team has made the NCAA tournament.
Let's go.
Going.
My ticket cashed.
Yeah, man.
I'm just kidding.
She's going. So anyway, go woo.
Yo, that's awesome. And shout out to you, Alex. Thank you for joining us and for all the great journalism you're doing in this space. We rely on guys like you who get around to all those publications to give us a great feel for what's actually happening in this space. And can't wait to have you back on the show. If you guys want to share story suggestions, you can reach me, paul.gerke@clearingevents.com. Subscribe, leave feedback. As I like to say, do whatever. I'm not your dad. All the articles we discussed this week are in the links in the episode description here in the article. And we'll see you next time, Cleantechers.